Well, the world sure doesn't slow down, does it? Today, we're going to really dig into some of the big stuff happening right now, stuff that could shape all our futures, from like global power dynamics to, well, craziness of cryptocurrency. And hey, we'll even touch on how blockchain could change how we think about trust itself.
Sounds like a lot to unpack.
It really is, but that's what these deep dives are all about, right? So first up, let's talk about this call for Europe to beef up its defense spending. The CEO of Saab, the defense contractor, is basically saying Europe needs to be ready to stand on its own 2 feet. What do you make of that?
It's interesting, right? You could almost think of it like, well, imagine your neighborhood's kind of starting to feel a little unpredictable.
Makes sense.
You might think about getting a better security system, not because you want to pick a fight, but just because, well, you want to be prepared, just in case. And I think that's kind of what's going on here, but on a much bigger scale, obviously.
So it's less about like waving weapons around and more about making sure they've got a say in how things play out.
Yeah, exactly. It's about strategic autonomy, having the ability to act independently. Because if they don't invest in their own defense, well, they risk becoming too reliant on other global players. And, that could limit their options down the line, both politically and when it comes to the economy, too.
Makes sense. It's all about the long game, isn't it? And speaking of high-stakes games, let's jump into the world of cryptocurrency. Buckle up, because things are rarely predictable in that world. I mean, just look at this. 94% of all Bitcoin is currently in profit. That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Imagine buying a stock, right? And like a year later, it's almost doubled in value. That's the kind of excitement, the kind of potential upside that we're talking about here. But, and this is a big but, with cryptocurrency, well, what goes up
Often comes down.
Exactly. It's that old saying. And this is where things get really interesting because, this recent surge, it could be a sign that Bitcoin's hitting a ceiling, at least for now, like a psychological barrier in the market. And, well, you see, the last time Bitcoin was anywhere near its all-time high, it caused this thing called a short squeeze. And it can really shake things up.
A short squeeze. Okay, I got to ask, what exactly is that?
So imagine someone, let's call them a bearish bettor, right?
Yeah.
And they borrow some Bitcoin, let's say at like $60,000, hoping to sell it, wait for the price to drop, and then buy it back cheaper. Then they pocket the difference. It's called short selling.
Okay, so far so good.
But here's the thing. If the price suddenly shoots up, well, past that all-time high, these bearish bettors, they're kind of stuck. They're forced to buy it back at a loss just to cover their position, to cut their losses. And that buying frenzy, well, that can push the price up even higher, creating this like chain reaction in the market.
It's almost like everyone's trying to cram through the exit at the same time, and all that panic just drives the price up even more.
Yeah, you've got it. That's a short squeeze, and it really highlights why people are both excited by and, let's be honest, a little scared of cryptocurrency.
It definitely keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
But let's move on to something that could potentially bring a little more stability to the digital world. Something with maybe a little less volatility. Blockchain. I mean, think about it. As AI gets more and more sophisticated, isn't it getting harder to tell what's real and what's fake online?
Absolutely. It's a huge concern. I mean, how can you trust anything when, well, seeing isn't necessarily believing anymore, right?
Which brings us to blockchain. I mean, this is where it could really come into play, isn't it?
Yeah, potentially. It could be a real game changer. Instead of thinking of it like just, a public ledger, I know, like kind of a boring term, right?
Yeah.
Think of it like a shared Google Doc that everyone has access to. But here's the key. No one can tamper with it. It's like a digital notary that can basically verify any piece of information, making it, well, nearly impossible to fake.
I mean, that's the idea, yeah. Every change is tracked, time-stamped, the whole deal. It's all right there for everyone to see. So yeah, it's transparent, it's tamper-proof, at least that's the promise, and that's why it has the potential to really shake things up, especially as AI gets more sophisticated.
So, like, let's say someone's trying to, pass off some AI-generated artwork as the real deal. Blockchain could, call them out.
Exactly. It could verify the artwork's origin, every step of its creation, from the initial brushstroke, so to speak, to the final product. But it's not just about art, Think about it. Online voting, supply chain management, even just verifying your identity online, anywhere trust and transparency are important. Yeah, I mean, that's huge. It's almost like, well, it almost sounds too good to be true. But let's shift gears a bit, talk about how these global trends, the AI, the blockchain, even the defense stuff, how they're actually playing out in the financial markets.
Sure, yeah.
Because it seems like a mixed bag out there right now, doesn't it? I mean, the USD is looking a little shaky, the GBPUSD and USDJPY, well, they're sending mixed signals too. It's a lot to keep track of.
It really is. It's like this constant tug of war, right? All
Yeah.
these global currencies, pushing and pulling against each other. And right now, yeah, the euro, it's looking a little weaker against the dollar.
So let's say I'm planning a European vacation. Does this mean, what, my dollar goes further?
It could, yeah. You might be able to enjoy a few extra cappuccinos, maybe an extra croissant or two, for the same budget.
Always a plus, right?
Right. And there's always a but, isn't there?
There always is.
If you're importing goods from a country with with a strengthening currency, well, those imports, they get more expensive. So it's this balancing act,
Yeah.
It all kind of evens out in the end.
It's all connected. We were talking about interconnectedness earlier. And you know what else is interesting? These whispers coming out of the investment world. Analysts at Citi, they're basically suggesting this pretty big shift in strategy. They're saying, like, investors should really focus on companies that prioritize, good old-fashioned operational efficiency over those flashier kind of financial tactics.
It's a really interesting development. They're basically saying, move away from the financial engineering, things like stock buybacks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the stuff that's designed to boost share prices quickly.
Exactly. It's all about the short-term gains, not the long game. But Citi's saying, hey, you know what? Focus on companies that are built to last. Companies with, strong fundamentals.
Companies that are more interested in, like, creating real value over the long term.
Exactly. Puts the tortoise in the hare, right? Slow and steady wins the race. And this shift, it really could signal, it could signal a bigger change in the overall economic climate.
A little more awareness, about sustainability, about thinking long term, that kind of thing.
I think so. And, it's a good reminder that sometimes the biggest changes, the ones that really matter, they happen kind of gradually. They're happening behind the scenes, not always making headlines,
Very true. Now, on a slightly more optimistic note, it seems like, could be. Could there be some light at the end of the inflation tunnel?
Well, the IMF seems to think so. They're cautiously optimistic, which, let's be honest, is good news for everyone. Because we're all feeling the pinch, right?
Absolutely.
Inflation, it's everywhere, from the grocery store to your rent or mortgage payments. So if we can get a handle on it, that's a win for everyone.
So are we in the clear yet? Can we all breathe a sigh of relief?
I don't know if I'd go that far. It's a little early to celebrate, let's just say that. There are definitely some positive signs, but there's still a lot of factors that could throw things off. Think about it. Geopolitical instability, all the supply chain issues we've been dealing with, climate change even.
It's all connected.
It really is.
And speaking of connections, let's move from the global stage to the world of business, because we've got some pretty interesting stuff happening there too. First up, the Price Company. They're really making moves in the student housing market.
They are, yeah. They're buying up properties like crazy, which I think tells you something, right? The demand for student housing, it's still really strong, even with everything else going on.
It's a good reminder that, even when things are uncertain, even when the economy's a little rocky, there are always opportunities out there, right?
Absolutely.
Now, on a different note, remember that potential acquisition we were talking about, the one with Martin Midstream Partners?
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, it seems like there's, a little drama unfolding. Apparently, a group of hedge funds is trying to, put the brakes on the deal.
Yeah, I saw that. Probably hoping to get a better price for themselves. You know how it goes.
It's all about leverage in the world of high finance, isn't it?
You said it. It's a high-stakes game, for sure. Reminds me, behind every big merger or acquisition, there are all these negotiations happening, competing interests, a whole lot of money at stake.
Speaking of money and, the delicate dance of human relationships, we've got one last story to share. It's, maybe it's a cautionary tale, really. It's about this parent who lent their kid a lot of money, like $100,000, to help with a down payment on a house.
Wow.
Yeah. It's something a lot of parents want to do for their kids, right?
Yeah.
Help them achieve that dream of home ownership.
Absolutely.
But it's definitely something that requires, careful thought. And that's where things get a little tricky in this case. So fast forward a few years, right? The kid's married now, they're doing well, and they're thinking about buying a bigger place with their spouse. So they're going to sell their first house, the one their parent helped them buy. But here's the thing, that generous gift, suddenly it's become a point of contention.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a tough situation.
It really is. And it highlights how important clear communication is, especially when you're talking about large sums of money within a family. I mean, was it a gift, no strings attached? Or was there this unspoken expectation that it would be paid back at some point?
Those are questions that really need to be addressed up front, don't they?
I think so. It's the only way to, to avoid misunderstandings, potential conflict down the line.
For sure. It's much easier to have those conversations early on, even if they're a little awkward.
Absolutely. Because let's face it, money can be a real sticking point in families.
It's true. It's a delicate balance,
Yeah.
wanting to support your loved ones, but also protecting your own financial well-being.
It really is. And there's no easy answer, is there? It's different for every family. But yeah, definitely a conversation worth having.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from global power shifts to the ins and outs of blockchain, even touched on the whole family finances thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's all connected, isn't it? These different threads, they all weave together in the end. It really shows just how complex the systems we operate within really are.
They really are. And it moves so fast. I mean, it's more important than ever to stay informed, ask the tough questions, and just be ready for whatever comes next.
Absolutely.
I mean, remember when we were talking about blockchain and how it can verify, whether something is authentic?
Yeah.
If AI keeps getting better at, mimicking us, mimicking how we act,
Right.
we might start seeing blockchain pop up everywhere in parts of our lives we haven't even thought of yet.
It's true. It's already happening faster than most people realize. It really is. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. It's been great, really digging into all this with you.
Yeah, I always enjoy it.
And for everyone listening, thanks for coming along for the ride. And remember, the world might be unpredictable, but hey, at least it's never boring, right? Keep those brains switched on, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.